Hey, it's Matt. Welcome back to the channel. I want to talk about Baldcafe, whether he should get a hair transplant. Is he a good hair transplant candidate, and what would be possible? What would be achievable with his situation right now? And I think this video is going to be pretty exciting for you guys because you might be subscribed to his channel as well. You might be in a similar situation. You might have similar hair condition or hair loss condition, and you want to know what's possible, what's realistic, what can you expect out of a hair transplant in such case. So make sure you stay tuned until the end. Make sure to like this video right now. If you are enjoying these regular hair loss and hair transplant related updates coming on this channel. And before we start, this video has been brought to you by GoFiber, which are hair building fibers you can use to mask any thinning or patchy areas on your scalp to make your hair look thicker and better. So make sure you check out the link in the video description below where you can visit GoFiber, get a free sample of your choice from them and try them out. See if you like them. Welcome back to the channel once again. Good to see you. I have had 3 hair transplants, and on this channel I've been educating guys for the last 4 or 5 years already on how to get your hair loss under control as fast as possible with the proven treatment, so you even forget that you have hair loss because your hair is already thickening with proven treatments, and then eventually bringing that hairline to the next level with a hair transplant. If you want to know more how I do it, what's my step-by-step approach, make sure you check out mattdominance.com where you can inform yourself more about that. And before we proceed with this video, I'd like to give Baldcafe's YouTube channel a shout out because I think it's another way how to deal with hair loss, deal with it on a mental level as well, by shaving it off or buzzing it off so you can forget about it and go live your life. Alright guys, now let's take a look at the video which Harry uploaded on his channel, The Life and Death of My Hair, which is showing his hair loss story. We want to know pretty much how fast his hair loss started to go, when he started receding for the first time, and also take a look at his family, relatives, his dad, you know, how he ended up with as far as his hair loss progression, so we get a better insight into what can be expected as far as long-term hair loss progression with Baldcafe. And based on that, I would probably suggest him this or that approach as far as getting a hair transplant.
But it was about this time that I discovered that I was going bald. And it was about the time this picture was taken. I discovered I was going to go bald. I was losing my hair. It was thin on top. During this time, I already knew that it was going, it was fading. I was feeling super insecure about it. I was always fussing with the back of my head. It felt thinner. I knew it had a bit, I had a bald patch at the back. I felt horrible about it. I felt really insecure about this whole hair thing. But by getting my hair cut like this, I could really see that things had progressed.
It seems like it went from no hair loss whatsoever. This guy has been pretty much like experimenting with different hairstyles and it was looking thick, and then suddenly somewhere between his like mid-20s to late 20s he starts like diffusely thinning on the mid-scalp. His hairline starts losing the definition on the corners. It seems like a diffuse hair loss as well, and his crown area is like most visibly like thinning. And this is the time when he decides to trim it to get that marine type of buzz cut, but still he sees the huge difference in thickness between the hair on sides, on the humps and on the crown area, and he doesn't know what to do, so that's why he decided eventually to shave it all off. One bad thing for somebody who's considering a hair transplant right away would be like your hair loss progression speed. If it's starting out of the sudden, that's fine, but if it's gonna progress very quickly, like we see in his case, like he went from like, you will see, from like Norwood 0, like virtually no hair loss in his mid to late 20s until like Norwood 5, diffusely thinning in his 30s or like late 20s, or like by the time he was 30. That's a very quick hair loss progression. That hair is going quickly, and that's first warning sign for you if you want to get a hair transplant. I'm going to explain you why. Now the second thing we want to be looking at is how bald his dad ended up and his relatives, his grandpa. And in this video he was also doing an interview with his dad about the way he went bald. He will be probably between Norwood 6 and Norwood 7, and his dad also said that he started losing hair at the university already, so it started pretty quickly with him as well. So you can see here what Baldcafe can expect as well with him. So there will be another warning sign if you see that your uncles, your father, your grandpa from mother and father side are already like noticeably like bald, they are already Norwood 5, 6 and higher, that's usually another warning sign number 2 for you if you consider a hair transplant, to be more cautious, to be more careful about the approach, about the way you decide to have your hair restored. And I'm gonna come back to that in a moment. So we already have 2 warning signs with Baldcafe. What would be the warning signs number 3 besides your balding relatives and speed of your hair loss progression? Another warning sign would be, are you on medication or not? And if not, are you willing to get on medication or not? Now, after watching several of Baldcafe's videos, I know that he never used finasteride like Propecia. I'm not sure whether he used minoxidil or not. Maybe he tried it out for a while, I don't know. But he's pretty much against medication because he doesn't want to use it. Whatever, okay? So he doesn't want to use it. So that's another warning sign that he doesn't want to get on medication. That means that his hair loss will not only progress further from here, from, I don't know, he's like what, Norwood 5, like the Fusely thing, Norwood 5, but still having the humps. But he doesn't want to take medication. In such case, his hair loss will progress in the future even further, because his hair loss is not only very fast, you know, this is what happened to him in a matter of 4 to 5 years. What's going to happen in another 5 or 10 years? He will probably end up looking close to his dad right now. So he'll probably look like Norwood 6 to 7 by the age of 40 already. So it's going to progress. That's something that you need to consider. Plus, if he would get a hair transplant, that transplanted hair could also thin a little bit with time if the patient is not on medication like finasteride, because even if that hair transplanted from the donor zone, which is classified as being DHT resistant, it's not always the case. It's not going to be always the case with all of the candidates, because once it's going to be transplanted on the top, it can also thin out over time based on how like aggressive that DHT is kind of behaving against that transplanted hair, for the newly transplanted hair on the newly recipient area. So based on that, that transplanted hair could also thin out over time. So that's another thing that he should consider in case he wants, or in case he would want to get a hair transplant, okay? Alright guys, before I move further and share with you some examples what Harry from Baldcafe could expect out of a hair transplant or multiple hair transplants, let's take a look what makes a good hair transplant candidate. So first of all, it would be like some, you know, specific hair properties, like a good hair texture, maybe having hair which is not entirely straight but maybe starts curling a little bit, so it creates that nice wavy shape, so it can camouflage the balding and thinning areas when it's going to be grown out longer and combed over. Also hair thickness, the thicker the hair, the better for a hair transplant, because the less of these follicles will be required to be placed for a specific square centimeter to create good density and low see-through effect. Also the follicular unit density on the donor area, ideally the higher the better. The more follicular units you have per square centimeter on the donor, the more of them could be removed from the donor area via FUT or FUE and placed on the recipient area. So that would be as far as your hair properties. Another things that can make somebody a good hair transplant candidate would be a low level of hair loss. Somebody who is like a Norwood 2, Norwood 3, maybe even Norwood 4, somebody who hasn't progressed that quickly from like Norwood 0 to Norwood 5 like Harry, unfortunately, okay? So somebody whose hair loss is not as aggressive, is not progressing as fast. Also somebody whose expectations are not as high, somebody who doesn't expect to have hair density as a hair system is able to provide you, or you know, hair density as you used to have when you were like 15. Somebody who has more realistic expectations, that makes him automatically to be a better, more suitable hair transplant candidate. And the last thing I would say would be a good response to medication. Obviously being on medication like finasteride to begin with and responding well to that treatment over many years, so you see that this medication is able to halt your hair loss, to slow it down, or even thicken and strengthen that existing hair. And that's the same thing that the medication will do to your transplanted hair as well over time. So that's why it's important to be on medication, to be willing to take medication, and ideally responding to medication well over time. These all things that I mentioned make you a good hair transplant candidate. Do I think that Harry from Baldcafe is a good hair transplant candidate? Now, at the current stage, probably not, because he's not able or he's not willing to get on medication like finasteride. And we know that even the best hair transplant doctors who do like FUE, like for example you see here like FUE expert doing, they're taking like that hair from the donor area from here, almost like from the humps already, like they go pretty high up, so they rely on that hair to stay there. And in order for these humps to remain there pretty thick for many years, you need to be on medication like finasteride. We see that with Harry, the humps are still there, they are pretty preserved still, but if he's not gonna take finasteride 5 years from now, he can already look close to what his dad is looking right now. Alright, so what I want to say is pretty much that if Harry decided to get a hair transplant right now, be it FUE or FUT, without getting on medication, I think this is the scenario which could beautifully you know, describe his situation maybe 5 or 10 years later, you know, him ending up with that island of hair on the front while the rest has recessed, also his lateral humps. Now if we talk about his hair thickness, hair texture and donor area density, which are obviously very important parameters once you are considering a hair transplant, like look here, I mean his hair is actually not that bad. I mean it starts curling, it starts creating that nice waviness after a certain length, which is actually good for a hair transplant. We know it, it's much better than like super straight hair. And I think the thickness is not that bad actually, but I think what's not so optimal is his donor area density. And this is a screenshot of his right side. We don't see it entirely, but what I can see already is that the lower portion of his side is much thinner compared to the, you know, to the area above it here. And also the humps are also kind of thinning out like irregularly like that. So pretty much the only area which seems somewhat thick is going to be that blue area right here, and probably his back, his occipital region. And the vast majority of this blue area is also gonna be finasteride dependent, whether it's gonna stay there for the next 5 or 10 years or not. And assuming he's not gonna be willing to get on medication, also like 50% of this area will be gone in the future. So literally doesn't make sense for him to even consider a hair transplant if he doesn't want to get on medication. And even if he would be a perfect responder to medication, obviously he could maintain this region, plus potentially he could thicken even this lower portion, which looks like more sparse right now. The hair looks more sparse in that region. So probably like on average, you know, like the average candidate could get maybe 4,000 to 5,000 grafts extracted via FUE, and I think that would be his limit. I'm just guessing, obviously, but as you can see here, guys, even 4,000 to 5,000 grafts with a nice hair per graft average, which would be at least 2.2, somewhere around there, it wouldn't be enough to successfully cover this region. Plus, you know, after these 4,000, 5,000 grafts, his donor will be probably already on the verge of being depleted with FUE right now, assuming we do FUE in his case, which is like the more popular procedure nowadays. Obviously, it could be discussed whether FUT or FUE or a combination of both would yield optimal results, and that would need to be estimated based on the consultation with a physician who would also observe his laxity of the donor and so on and so on. All right, guys, and now let me share with you what I think would be realistic to achieve for Harry from Baldcafe had he started with medication like finasteride for at least 1 year prior to his procedure. Assuming he would get FUE and then FUT. So let's say he goes to FUE and he goes to a clinic that specializes in like, let's say mega sessions FUE on guys who are like Norwood 5 and Norwood 6, like for example Eugenics in India. And this is one of their patients who is also a Caucasian patient. I think he's also English. He's 45, Norwood 7, and he got 5,600 grafts from the scalp scalp and 1,400 from the beard. I think from the beard they could do also 1,400 with hairy. However, from the scalp, I'm not sure if they could extract 5,600 with hairy. Maybe they would have stopped by 4,500 because of his donor area, but nonetheless, I think overall, even Baldcafe could have achieved maybe 6,000 grafts with FUE and body hair transplant in one sitting. And just to share with you how this could maybe look like, and this patient has like super straight hair. I'm not sure it's going to even start curling a little like with Baldcafe. So this is you know, a slight advantage that Baldcafe has right off the bat. I think the hair thickness could be similar with both patients, and here you can see how this patient pretty much looked before as well. So it's pretty similar to Baldcafe, maybe even slightly worse, and this is after the procedure. Okay, it looks like that. I think this is 4-month result. This is a 4-month result, by the way. If we take a look to the go to the 7-month result, that's how it looks like. Obviously, we can see through the hairline, but this patient is also 45, so for him, it's gonna be. I'm sure he's gonna be happy with that. Obviously, Baldcafe is in his early 30s, so probably, you know, he maybe won't be so happy like this patient who is in his mid-40s already. In terms of hair density and you know, overall coverage, I think Baldcafe could achieve something like that, or at least close to this, because again, he has that body grafts or grafts underneath his chin, which could be utilized additionally. Now, assuming Baldcafe had decided to get a FUT. Here is another result of 5,130 grafts FUT on a Norwood 5, who actually didn't have such a high hair per graft average, and you can see it here. It was just on average 2 hairs from each graft. He had a lot of double grafts, not so many triples, and yeah, a good amount of singles. And here we can see that he has also some wispy hair on top. He's more like Norwood 5, slightly better than Baldcafe right now. I think Baldcafe has slightly more balding, and also it seems like this guy has like a little bit slightly more like narrow skull as well, which helps obviously. And he gets 5,000 grafts, and you see that the frontal third has a nice coverage. Obviously, if the hair is longer, and I think this guy might have even thinner hair than Baldcafe, and it's much more straight. I think that Baldcafe could achieve a similar result with 5,000 grafts, but I think that he also has like more balding on the crown compared to this guy. So probably Harry would need to get like 5,000 grafts FUT and then maybe additional body hair transplant and FUE of another 2,000 grafts for the crown to you know, to come on to a similar result like this guy, but then, or maybe even better result. But the question is if this will be even possible with Baldcafe's donor at a current stage. Probably not. You know, also depends on the laxity, obviously. Now, for all of you guys who are interested in a hair transplant and you are interested in my personal guidance, you want to be educated properly, you want to make the best possible decision, then you should go to MattDominance.com, where you can check out my step-by-step process, the way I do it, the way I'm helping out guys throughout their hair transplant research, and chances are you may even sign up for a one-on-one help with me personally. I will be happy to help you out with your research and with your big decision. You can also check out my Facebook group, Hair Transplant Experiences, which is for free. You can also check out the link in the description below, where you can join us, post your question, post your result. If you want to support my channel, hit that like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet, and hit the notification bell as well. And and with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to be seeing you in another video. Take care.